Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We spoke earlier today to Christian Easterday, who's the MD at Hot Chili. They're an ASX Explorer developer hunting copper gold in Chile. And if you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversation and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. Where you can also find detailed company reports. There's also market commentary from experts from around the world on a variety of commodities and companies. There are training videos on there and also summaries of other interviews that we have done just to save you a little bit of time. And of course, there's a thriving community of investors on there sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other. So why don't you join them at cruxinvestor.com/club. And of course, we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, leave your comments below. And if you want to see what we talked about today, take a look in the description below. Christian, how you doing, sir?
Yeah, good. How are you? Good to see you again.
Not too bad. Yeah, all well here. Let's see, you're in Perth, are you?
Yeah, in Perth still. Still locked down for now, but we just had the borders open here, so I think everyone in Western Australia is looking forward to jumping on a plane, hopefully, and good news with the impending vaccine. Very positive trials.
Yeah, all good. Well, hopefully good. It's the start of something good. Now, you've been a busy boy since we last spoke, which was crikey, I'm looking back at the beginning of August. So I'm really keen to sort of see how you've been moving things along. But first, for people new to the story, give us that 1 minute overview and I'll pick it up from there.
Sure. Well, obviously we're one of the, we are actually now the largest copper play on the ASX outside of a major mining company. So we're a copper developer over in Chile that's spent 10 years putting together a master plan to build an extremely large copper production hub out of our assets on the coastline of Chile. We've been investing heavily, and we now find ourselves after a very, very big milestone for the company as really breaking into a company that's holding one of the largest copper developments in the world. So very exciting times.
It is indeed. In fact, I think you've got a few things that you needed to deliver, and you've come up with a combined maiden resource. Numbers not bad. You happy?
Yeah, look, I think so. You know, when you can do that with a year of drilling, less than 20,000 meters that the company put into that private discovery in this past year, and we come up with, one of two major copper discoveries to be reported really since 2014 in the world. So, that generally catapults you forward, and we're now sitting with as I said, the largest ASX copper gold resource base. So yeah, it's very happy as a CEO, but a lot of work that went into that to get it right.
I bet. Just remind us of some of the numbers there, the highlights, please.
Yeah, so I guess we've started now Cortadera as one of the world's really leading copper gold discoveries of the last 4 or 5 years. That's delivered a 450 million ton resource base from surface out of the 3 porphyries that really sort of sit in a very similar size footprint to one of the other key players in the world, which is SolGold's Alpala discovery at Cascabel over in Ecuador. So we're certainly really mixing it up with some of the best projects going around. Now that grade was at around about 0.5% copper equivalent, and what we were able to do is to align that and combine that with our existing Productora project and turn that 450 million ton new resource into a combined entity of close to 750 million tons, which in the copper world, we're knocking on the door of potentially tier 1 asset being the next stop for Hot Chili. So that moves us from around 12th or 13th largest project in the world, not controlled by a major mining company, up into a really elite space, sort of top 5 or top 6. And I guess what's really important for us on the ASX is we're now sort of broken free of the rest of our peer group over here, and we're sitting in a very, very valuable space that's dominated by the North American players.
Okay, and with that comes a whole bunch of new problems. Funding. right?
Yeah.
So talk to us through what you think you need to do. So, which is great. So well done on the Maiden resource. People were waiting for it. It's a long time in the making. You spent a lot of money, over $100 million to get here. Okay.
That's
so
right.
Now what?
Yeah, look, it's really, crunch time for Hot Chili. So we've got the opportunity. We've got, like I said, a very, very rare opportunity to turn that springboard into a tier one asset, become one of the very few holding a tier one asset. And then it's all about implementing this combined development strategy. And we spoke about in the announcement, we're taking a very, very simple concept, putting all of these deposits together that all sit within 14 kilometres at most, with one processing facility, and turn this into one of the very, very few low altitude big projects to be entering the pipeline, and to be doing that with large open pits and high grade underground operations. You're talking about the blueprint for a multi-decade large scale copper gold asset being delivered over the coming years. So pretty exciting space, which means next year is really critical. Funding is really critical, and we now got the opportunity to take out the acquisition of this project 100%, with the last key milestone payments mid to late next year and the following, as well as start putting in the drilling that takes us there. So okay. We're looking forward to the next steps.
Break that down for me, because that's a nice generic statement. I need to know what the plan is. So how much money are you going to need to get together? One, to make payments. Two, to do the drilling and
Sure.
and build this thing out. Because it's so Crux Investor Club members will know, Sol Gold haven't quite got it right. They've got a long way to go. They've been rewarded by the market partially, but it's easy to get wrong too. So what's the actual plan, step by step? What's next?
So just as you said, step by step and one foot in front of the other, and this is all about staging, right? We've staged this from the commencement of this re-rate at 1 cent all the way to here, and no doubt we've got a few really important steps next. The immediate next step for us is about implementing an acceleration of our drilling plan, and to facilitate the next step in resource growth, which will be about a year away, to really put this next big piece of meat on the bone. And I suppose, even coming back from there, it's accelerating our lease mining and processing agreement with our partner, the government. That's about additional cash flow and the ability for our working capital to be less burdened. But most importantly, it's also about over the coming months, Hot Chili deciding with the various partner discussions and funding discussions, just how we stage that next set of funding, because it will be substantial. We are talking about committing to probably around about a $10 to $15 million drilling budget, and most importantly, we'll be no doubt looking to remove that $10 million US payment to the owners of this project at Cortadera, the Corolla family, well before July next year. So, I'm very fortunate to have good treasury at the moment, which means that we can take the right decision. And so great to have a very buoyant copper price and market backdrop to all of this situation.
That's true. Okay, so let's do some numbers here. So the lease mining, what's that contributing? And is there any room for growth there?
Look, quite modest, as we talked about last time, and more about the partnership than the cash flow. But every dollar helps in this business. So, we stated originally, back it was stated to be somewhere around the $1.8 to $2 million per annum on the full 100% basis going forward. We expect that to probably commence commercially at the end of this month. So very excited to see that's not far around the corner. Actually, in the announcement we just put out today, we just got the approval for the Productora underground mining license, which now allows that team to really ramp that up. But, given the price of copper and gold, since we signed this agreement, you could probably add another 20 to 30% on that basis alone. And in addition to that, what we're really pleased to be talking about is, the discussions with the government to expand that production are also going well. So always good to have inflows to help with the timing on making the right decision on funding and which groups we're looking to align with on that, whether that be equity or what we might be contemplating.
Right, and if anyone actually wants to understand that better or more deeply, I'll go to the link below in the description where we talked about it last time, Christian. Okay, so that's great. The drill program for next year, you talk about 10 to 15 million bucks. I mean, what does that involve? I know because it's reasonably deep drilling. So how many holes, how many meters, what should we expect?
Look, we're roughly sitting in the 15 to 20,000 meters of diamond drilling. That's going to be twofold diamond drilling. The majority of that is going into the direct expansion of Cortadera out from 450 million tonne, towards 750, 850, and heaven forbid if we can get this thing eventually over 1 billion tonnes on its own, wouldn't that be fantastic? So, but step one, about 15 to 20,000 meters of drilling for phase 4 on the diamond side, and part of that drilling will also be trying to continue hitting these bigger picture targets. And supporting that, we'll also have some 15,000 metres to 20,000 metres of RC drilling.
Well. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're trying to build a picture of what's going on there. And just on the drilling, we've seen in places like Brazil where the real has depreciated against Canadian dollar, Aussie dollar, etc. Are you seeing that in Chile as well?
Yeah, there has actually before the pandemic, or when the pandemic kicked off, there was a reasonable devaluation of the Chilean peso. That helps us a little bit locally, but unfortunately, I wouldn't be honest if I didn't tell you that our productivity challenges because of COVID have pretty much kept that benefit in check.
Okay. Understood. So again, tell me about the diamond drilling and the RC drilling, because the diamond drilling, again, how quickly will you get results? Because I think one of the criticisms thrown at you is being the paucity of information into the marketplace, the speed at which you kind of feed back into the marketplace. So in terms of the drilling, people are going to be excited. Is that going to be a bit more rapid?
Yeah. Look, I think that's a fair comment, and I think that the company, every step of this way has been frustrated by the speed of the drilling this year, and that's really hampered our ability to deliver the kind of news flow. Last year, we had a really effective month per month, 1,000 meter diamond hole coming out to the market, and stacked up a number of world class hits very quickly. So we have been challenged in that, and what I can say is that we're putting in place quite a number of things that hopefully soon will be able to be implemented. And look, we were looking for a real acceleration in the drilling, from moving from single shift diamond drilling and single shift RC drilling on a part-time basis, moving to getting 2 rigs on the ground certainly in the new year, but hopefully before Christmas. Both on double shift, as well as an RC rig that we can count on to be drilling throughout the month. So, from moving to 1.5 shifts to 5 shifts is what we're aiming to achieve.
Right. But in terms of the information coming back out into the market, how regularly will you be reporting? That's what people want to know.
Yeah, well, on that basis, probably a lot more regularly than last year. So we would certainly like to have that news flow and that growth focused drilling news flow coming out, every 3 to 4 weeks at a minimum. So that's what we would be looking to position ourselves on, and obviously that would be an extremely exciting period of growth and 2021 for us.
Okay, so your goal on the drilling is to potentially expand the resource, try and get to that billion copper, a billion ton. Is it a copper million ton of copper equivalent we're going with, are we?
Yeah, look, I think we also don't like to cheat on that game. I'm not a
good, because I'm about to ask you.
Equivalent as a tier 1. I still define it as 5 million tons of copper, so I'll make it a bit harder for myself. But I'm looking for another couple of million tons on the grocery store shelf. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you said that. So, right, once you've done that, you will have spent your 10 to 15 million bucks on drilling. How much cash have you got today?
At the moment, we're sitting around about 4 million.
Right. Okay. So that's your G&A covered. Right. Okay. When are you raising this money? Where? Who, who's going to give you that?
You could expect that the discussion's probably already underway, and we'll take a pretty balanced view on whether we push something out before Christmas. I think that it's likely that we have comfort to be able to push into the first quarter. So I'm pretty positive that we've got a bit of flexibility to make the right decision.
Okay. Well, that's good news. Are you going to be very much focused on that, or are you going to also work on other targets too?
Yeah. So look, what we're going to be starting to talk about, and today we started exposing some of the drill news flow from some of those bigger targets. Everyone knows we've got a rig that's gone up to Cortadera North to a lookalike 2 kilometre zone that's getting first drilling. So that's underway now, outside of the drilling going on at Cortadera. But look, in the new year, we're actually looking to start working on expanding those high-grade satellites in the El Fuego corridor, some 4 kilometres away. We've said that before Christmas or towards the end of the year that we'll be adding the San Antonio high-grade satellite into this resource base. And, that should take our combined inventory on Costa Fuego to hopefully above 3 million tonnes of contained copper, and certainly every little bit helps. Certainly material that's got a lot of grade in it. So we're really focusing on next year, not just all being about Cortadera. We've got a reshape exercise going on Productora. We'll be drilling the El Fuego corridor, and who knows what other treasures Hot Chili has in its chest that we'll be talking about in the coming month or so.
The other component here is a $10 million payment, which is still outstanding. Can you give me, just remind me, or remind people watching this, what are the ownership levels at Cortadera, at Costa Fuego, Productora, etc.? What are the assets you've got?
So just on all of the elements, and firstly Cortadera, it's the centerpiece. So that's a 100% purchase deal. We've laid down $5 million US already. The Corolla family were very good to give us that 1 year extension for that $2 million US fee. So $7 million US has been sunk towards that acquisition. In mid-July of next year, we have our second payment of $10 million US, and then we have a bullet payment of $15 million US. So $25 million on the original purchase. $30 million on the original purchase. I'll get my maths correct. With the extension fee, puts the total acquisition cost at $32 million US, to be potentially holding the keys to a tier 1 copper asset in the world. And did I mention the 2.7 million ounces of gold? So I think we're sitting on one of the real acquisition stories of the past decade in copper.
Well, the gold's a good number if that's a recoverable number and it's economic, for sure. But I guess a long way to go before you can work that out. Just on the Corolla family though, do you think if you can start driving the share price that you may be able to renegotiate terms, because you'd want all of your cash going in the ground? Do you think there's a kind of share for or an equity deal to be done with them potentially?
Yeah, look, I think that it certainly has not been something that hasn't crossed the minds of the directors, along with a number of things that we've searched out in previous discussions with the Corolla family. We have a very clean deal at the moment, and we're certainly not in discussions to complicate that. However, we also have a very good relationship with them, and that as has been evidenced a couple of times now, has given us great flexibility to have a pretty open discussion with them. So I wouldn't close any doors on any potentialities as to how we make those final payments or what their eventual involvement may well be. But at this stage, we're very clear that Hot Chili's got the right to buy 100% of this acquisition, and we have a very willing party in the Corolla family.
Okay. But you've thought about it. Okay. What's happening with Michael Anderson and Taurus?
Yes, I thought you'd ask. Nothing better than a little bit of intrigue in a junior company. No, look, actually, it's something that unfortunately has occurred. Taurus, like any shareholder, you've got a market and you're able to sell and buy. And we've just seen the first selling ever by Taurus in their investment in Hot Chili. So it's bound to raise eyebrows. And unfortunately, I'm not Gordon Galt or any of the Taurus guys sitting here, so I can't tell you what's in their head. But we were part of a 8-year locked fund with Taurus in their T2 investment, and most people would know that's just recently expired. So I guess money doesn't just inflow forever. So unfortunately that having Michael Anderson on the board, that put him in a little bit of a prickly kind of situation where you have a large shareholder that has obviously sold some shares in the market and he's sitting in board meetings. So, I think Michael thought it was most appropriate that he step off the board while this has occurred, and we'll see what happens from here.
While this has occurred, meaning he'll come back at some point, or has he left?
Yeah, I think that the entire board holds Michael Anderson in the highest regard. He's one of was one of our strongest credentialed directors. A guy that's already done it before, and more importantly, he was a huge support to the board. We often refer to Michael as and always have as one of our strongest directors. So it's with heavy hearts that I don't see him in the next board meetings. But you never say never in this game. I'm sure that Michael and the board still speak outside of the meetings.
Okay, so he's not coming back
for now. But you never rule out anything in life.
Okay. Given the numbers on the maiden resource, and it's just a maiden resource, let's not get too carried away here, but it's starting to look like, as you say, very sizable operation now. What's your plans? Because you've been at this a long, long time, okay? This is the first step of many required to get this thing into production. What's the company's plans here? Are you looking to be a miner, or are you happy to start inviting conversations from people who have got the balance sheet, who can get this into production?
I think extremely valid question. Yes, I've been doing for a long time. Yes, we've been running a marathon. I don't know whether I'm at the 35K mark or the 38K mark, but yeah, it feels like I'm on the downhill run in terms of just that build up of what we needed. So we're making a lot of appointments at Hot Chili. There's management restructuring going on. Some of the presentations have outlined some of the key people and appointments. A new COO, Grant King from Wood, a new resource development, Kirsty Sheeran, that's just been added in the past week, and no doubt a number of additional new management appointments that will be made over the coming months. So we are very much about increasing our capability. No doubt that the management team is at the forefront now, and who knows what other corporate reshaping that needs to occur will occur. But where does this all go? Back to your question, it goes to building the capability to be able to develop this Costa Fuego copper production hub. And that's to do with funding, it's to do with people, it's to do with scale of operations and accelerating this so we can make this happen while we've got this strong move in the copper price going on.
Right. So the question is, do you want to be a miner? You're saying you want to be a developer. You don't necessarily want to be a miner.
I would love to see Hot Chili transformed into a large-scale major copper mining company. That has been a dream of mine from the beginning. But, will I be the guy at the helm? Will I be the most appropriate person transitioning into something like that? I'm a large shareholder, and I'd want to see the company run the best way it can. And if that involves someone else at the appropriate time, I'm going to be very happy to take it as far as I can, as far as the shareholders are happy to have me running Hot Chili.
Okay. The other component, we like copper. Okay, we think copper is going to be great for 2021. Let's say the price is moving. It's on the up. People are starting to take notice, and I think they'll certainly start to take notice of you with your maiden resource. How are you seeing 2021, 2022 developing? Because again, we have a lot of inbounds around EV thematics, green circular economies, renewables, just the whole ESG component. People are getting excited again for battery metals, and the prices are starting to reflect that excitement too. So, what are your hopes for 2021? What do you feel that you need to deliver over and above the drill results?
Yeah, sure. And you've got to have the timing right in all of this. Large scale, long-term copper investment, right? It's all about hitting your straps at the right time. So to be doing what we've just done and what we're planning to do over the next year is about really moving now. We believe we're in a copper updraft. We believe that some of those medium-term, thematics that the copper industry has talked about, and the chorus grows louder, but we've been talking about a lot of these things for 4 or 5 years. So it's good to see them starting to really take hold and be at the forefront of some of the big investment houses. Copper is at the center of the electrical, push, and is one of the greenest metals going around. And we just happen to be holding this fantastically green project in Costa Fuego. We're one of the few low altitude, real large scale developers in a great location in Chile to be at the center of the world's biggest copper production. But, we're low altitude. We've got no arsenic in any of our ore bodies, which instantly, puts you in a really strong space. But, we sit next to the coastline. We've got hardly any infrastructure footprint to be able to develop this thing. And on top of that, I've just watched as I spent the last 10 years in Chile, as Chile's power industry has completely transformed itself with the introduction of major PV into the grid. And Costa Fuego sitting next to two of the largest PV plants built in the Atacama Desert. So I would say that, we're sitting in a very attractive space as a large copper development investment destination, and really a developer of choice.
Okay. Well, Christian, thanks very much for the update. I just wanted to catch up because obviously you said you were going to do some stuff. You were in a pretty tricky spot last time we spoke. I think the market's reacted to more of your messaging. That might be a clue. More messaging, please. Nice maiden resource, and hopefully some good drill results this year will really help you. Appreciate your time. Stay in touch. Call us if there's anything interesting, okay?
Excellent. All right. Appreciate your time. Thanks.